Nils Smith, Chief Strategist of Social Media and Innovation at Dunham & Company. Nils launched one of the first ever online church campuses in the world. He hosts the Social Media Church podcast and is the author of Social Media Guide for Ministry, Crypto for Good, and the Social Media Guide, Practical Insights for Effective Engagement. Please welcome Nils Smith.
It is a huge honor to be here. I'm so grateful for the Secure Give team allowing me to be a part of this event. A couple of the guys mentioned earlier that they have the coolest jobs in the world, and I'm sorry, but I have the coolest job in the world. Rick Dunham is one of my bosses. He is amazing, is he not? We at the end of the day, and as Rick shared, we help ministries do more ministry. And it's my role at Dunham & Company as the innovation lead, the head of innovation for a company that, as Rick will often say, to run ahead of ministries 5 years. And so that looks like playing in spaces like the metaverse or cryptocurrency, more specifically, is something that I've been very involved in over the last couple of years. And I can't tell you how excited I am about the announcement that was just made. And Given is a company that we have also worked with over the last several years. And it's been so exciting to see so many of our ministry partners beginning to adopt cryptocurrency. And I really believe that we have, Drew said it so well, such a unique moment to not just play catch up with technology, but to lead the way in this shift that's happening. And I've seen with frustration pain points that we as ministry leaders have often been laggards when it comes to new technology. And I think about website technology, and churches didn't want to get a website because we're like, no, that's pornography, happens on the internet. We don't want to be on there. Or we don't want to get on social media because people cheat on their spouses on Facebook, and we shouldn't be on there. It's of the devil. And at the end of the day, bad things happened on websites and bad things happened on social media, but it so have great things. And the technology itself is agnostic, but the opportunities are huge. And cryptocurrency, like anything else, is used for bad purposes, and it can be used for incredible purposes. And we have the opportunity to both redeem it, but also to lead the way into this space. And I think that at the end of the day, in James' session, I got to sit in on the breakout, was so well spoken, where at the end of the day, what do we have to lose by jumping into this space? Let's get there early. Let's not wait until somebody comes to us with a $250,000 donation. Be ready to accept that donation before they offer it to you, because somebody's probably already waiting for you to let them know that that's available, and not even thinking that they could donate their cryptocurrency that's sitting in their digital wallet. So I hope you'll embrace that. I just get really fired up about that technology innovation and what I'm seeing, and what I'm seeing in a company like Secure Give, who is eager to innovate on behalf of the church. A little bit about myself. I'm based in New York City. This is my family. If you can see here in front of the Brooklyn Bridge, I've got a beautiful wife that we've been married 16 years and 2 daughters. Got a new teenage daughter now in my house. And before moving to New York City, I was an innovation pastor at a community Bible church. It was actually I was like an associate pastor, but the pastor, I think, said if I call him an innovation pastor, which means anything I want to give him to do, he'll do, but it sounded cooler. And so I was in charge of multi-sites, and I was in charge of communications, and I was in charge of young adults. And I was also in charge of doing this new thing at the church called building an online church. And so 13 years ago, Robert Emmett asked me, can you help us build an online church? And you seem to know how this internet thing works. And we'd built 10 multi-site campuses, and we're doing a lot of kind of innovative things in ministry. But he had heard Life Church had built a church on the internet, and maybe it's time to do this. So we leaned into, we bought onlinechurch.com because nobody was crazy enough to build a church on the internet 13 years ago. And so that domain was available, and we got on this new website, facebook.com. You guys might have heard of it, and thought, I bet we could build a church in this social network. And we experimented, and I'll show you a picture from my office. And this was a map that I had on my wall in my office, and you can see here all the dots And so every time somebody would log in from a different location, I'd put a dot in the map. And it blew us away as we just basically updated our Facebook status that people all over the world started attending our church. Within the first year of doing online church 13 years ago, we were averaging about 12,000 attendees a week from over 100 different countries around the world. All 50 states would typically be represented in our services. And I wish I could tell you that when I look at this picture that I get excited about the dots on the wall, but what I really see is that I'm missing the hair that used to be on my head. And so it is sad, and 12 years later, online ministry caused me to lose my hair. And Rick told me when I came to the Dunham Company, he'd teach me how to grow my hair back. It's his beautiful head of hair that he has, and he hasn't taught me yet. And so maybe at 10 years, they'll teach me. But I had a blast getting to innovate around online ministry and learned a ton in the process and made a lot of mistakes. And one of the things I want to share and have really appreciated sharing is our learnings along the way. Because at the end of the day, when you're innovating, you make mistakes. And you fall on your face a little bit, and you can help others avoid similar mistakes. And that's what comes, I think, with innovation. A little backstory, maybe to take you a little further back of how I got into online ministry, because what I want to talk through today is how do we use digital technology to drive people to their deepest level of engagement within our church. And that's financially, but that's all aspects of how people can digitally engage with our churches. And I say I got into online ministry in 1999. I was a youth minister. I was 19 years old, and I had my first Wednesday night youth group. We had two kids come, a seventh grade girl and a junior in high school boy. It was really awkward. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd been a Christian for like 2 years at that point. And I was given, I feel like, two tools to work with. Well, really one tool. They're like, here's the keys to a 15-passenger van, which are now illegal, and no 19-year-old should ever be given the keys to a 15-passenger van. But they're like, use this and pick up teenagers and do stuff with them, keep them busy, you know? And I was like, I'm gonna lead every teenager in Baytown, Texas, where I was, to Jesus this summer. And I was fired up to do youth ministry and did that first Wednesday night. I'm like, this is awkward. Like, what am I doing here? And the seventh grade girl asked me what my aim was that Wednesday night. And I said, well, my aim is to reach every teenager in Baytown, Texas with the gospel. And she just glazed over so fast. She said, no, what's your aim? And I said, I just told you, it's to reach every teenager in Baytown, Texas with the gospel. She said, no, what's your AOL Instant Messenger? And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, you take that CD, you put it in your computer, you connect to the World Wide Web, and all my friends are there. And sure enough, I'd get on the secretary's computer because we had, it was a small Methodist church in Baytown, Texas, and we had a one computer in the church with dial-up internet, and I got on the World Wide Web, and I got an AOL Instant Messenger account, and I hung out with her friends, and I hung out with the junior high school boys' friends. And now, like, we learned, like, you shouldn't actually chat with teenagers till late at night. But there were no rules in 1999 to how this World Wide Web worked. And so I was an online pastor, like, reaching these teenagers. Literally that next day, I had a 15-passenger van full of kids. So I turned a digital ministry into physical ministry. We were bowling the next day. Went from 2 kids to 15 kids overnight, thanks to AOL Instant Messenger. By the end of that summer, we had 40 kids, accept Christ, about a dozen of those in the chat on AOL Instant Messenger. I was an accidental online pastor. And I think one of the things that we've even seen through the pandemic is a lot of us didn't want to get into online ministry. We're kind of forced into it, but we're seeing that there are incredible opportunities. And just as we heard earlier today, it's not like either the internet or in person, it's online and in person. And it's a part of how we do ministry. And I think we get frustrated but we did it like this. We used to do it like this. It worked so well when we did it like that. Can't we go back to that? And the reality is no, we can't go back. But I think if we will see technology and the opportunities that it brings to us rather than the frustrations that it's bringing to us, I think we'll see so much fruit in the lives of our ministry. So I want to walk us through, even as I go back to 1999, we have what I believe to be our old path of engaging people, and I believe we have a new path that is developing, whether we're even intentional about it or not. So the old path, it started with a church sign. People would find our church because of our church sign, and they would drive by and they would see churches at 11 o'clock or 9:45, and I'm gonna show up 9:45 on Sunday. And that was our marketing strategy to get people to church. I actually remember when I was I'm ordained Baptist, and so I was in a Baptist church out of college, and we we would sit down every year and look at how big of a Yellow Pages ad are we going to take out this year. And that was like our marketing budget. And it was like, do we do the $100 or the $50 Yellow Pages ad? And that was our marketing strategy. And so we had the church sign, and somebody would see our church sign. They'd show up, they'd attend our services. And then at the end of our services, we'd say, if you want to join the church, come to the front and commit. They'd walk to the front, and they would join our church, and we'd pass the plates, and they would give, and they would tithe. And that was church. That was basically our pathway to engaging and our pathway to tithing and giving. And it was simple, and it was easy, and it seemed to work. But the reality is, like, that just doesn't work anymore. Imagine if all you have was a church sign that had your service times on it, and you pass the plates, and you wish for the best. That strategy isn't going to work anymore. And the reality is, we had a lot of intentionality in between there, but it just kind of happened, and we knew our flow, we knew how it worked. But now I think we've got to be much more strategic and intentional in the pathway. So let's talk about the new pathway. When somebody's finding your church and they're beginning to engage with your church, it starts with a Google search, right? Or a social media post. And so naturally, even if somebody is sharing about their church, the first thing somebody's going to do is then Google the church that they heard about. And so I wonder practically, if somebody Googles your church, will they find you? Have you tried Googling your church? Have you tried, and I'm curious, even thinking for Stevens Creek, have you Googled churches in Augusta, what pulls up? I actually tried it earlier, and Stevens Creek does pull up on the first page of Google, so you're doing a good job with your SEO. But I think that it's an important aspect of really checking that out, of what would somebody Google, and then how do you pull up? How do you make sure that when somebody's looking on the internet, they're going to find you? One of the mistakes I often see, I'm going to get very practical here for a second. And in this session, I really want to dig into some practical insights. A couple tips here. One mistake that I see a lot of churches make is they don't even put the city of their church on their website, because they, just like their church sign, well, people know where they are. But on the internet, it's the World Wide Web. So it's everyone on the world searching. You want to make sure if somebody's searching Augusta, that Augusta is pulling up. If somebody's searching Abilene, churches, that you have Abilene on your church site. You know where they are, but they don't necessarily know based on your church website where they are. So make sure you have your city and your location on your church website, and that when people are searching it, that's pulling up. So the number one way people find a church is by searching church in blank city. And so make sure your site is optimized. A couple of just tips here. Google reviews is probably the best thing you can do. Get your staff, get your volunteers, get your leaders to leave a Google review. That's going to help your SEO, your search engine optimization significantly. And Yelp also goes a long way. It's probably the most instant thing that you can do to help your SEO. The second step, so they see you on Google search. What's Google going to do when they see your listing? They're going to click to your website. So your website we often will call it our first impression. It's actually our second impression. Is people visiting our website. So the first impression is that Google search or a social media post, but the second impression is then them going to our website. Third step, when they go to our website, is they typically are going to stream a sermon. So our hope, I believe, as ministry leaders, is they go to our website and then they come to church. But practically, you think about it, even when you go to a restaurant now, and you're choosing a restaurant, you're typically going to search restaurants in the area. And then before you even go, haven't you, or I don't know how you function, but a lot of times you've already picked out what you're going to order off the menu before you even get there. You check out as much as you can before you commit your time and your energy to show up. And so just like people, when they come to a church, is they don't want to just show up. They want to check it out. Like, how should I dress? What's the preaching going to be like? What's the music going to be like? Am I going to be able to blend in and fit in? Is it going to be dark? Is it going to be bright? Is it going to be conservative? Is it going to be, what's it going to be like? And so they're going to check it out as much as they can online. So they're probably going to stream a sermon as their next step towards engagement. And I wonder what that experience is like on your website. Is it easy for them to stream a sermon? And then they're going to visit anonymously. They're going to visit anonymously. They want to visit your church and check it out from the back row. So they're not going to just walk in, sit down in the pew, and then at the end of the service, walk to the front. They're going to visit anonymously, and probably visit anonymously multiple times before they connect to any level of community. And so after they visit anonymously, they're going to attend sporadically. So then maybe they'll begin to say, okay, this is going to be our church. We'll show up when we feel like it. And we see this engagement just beginning to steadily increase. And then the next step, I think, is a huge step, and that's that they give occasionally. Give occasionally. And this is where I believe, and one of the things Marty talked about last night that was so significant was the communication, that email communication to the first-time donors. But what does that look like to communicate uniquely to that first-time donor? When somebody gives their first gift, they're not joined or committed to your church yet, but they're committing to at least even share their information and share their giving information with you. And so there's a level of commitment that they're beginning to make beyond just showing up. And then they're going to connect in community. And what does that look like in your church? And thinking through, and I want you to just even digitally think through of when somebody shows up and then they give, what's that giving experience like? And then if they want to connect to community, how easy is it for them to sign up for a small group or to show up for a men's group or a women's group? And how do they get connected in community? And how do they sign up for those things in the most natural experience? And then they'll begin to serve, most likely. And so maybe they'll serve coffee or they'll greet at a door, but they're beginning to commit more of their time and their energy. So they're attending more consistently, they're giving occasionally, they're beginning to serve, and then I believe we'll begin to see them commit financially. And this is a process, and I think reality is not everyone's going to follow the same process, but what we too often expect people to do is to show up on our website. We don't know how they're going to get there, but we expect them to show up on our website. We expect them then to attend our services, and then we expect them to give first Sunday. And I think we know logically that that's not really how it's going to happen, but we're not intentional about some of those micro steps in between. And so I think there's just some practical things that we can do today to begin to optimize those experiences to help people move down that deepest level of engagement with our church. So the first thing as we think about 7 steps to foster a spirit of giving and engagement on digital platforms, the first thing is to make a great impression, first impression and potential guest to your website and point people to your website. And so I want to show you this social media post from Prestonwood Baptist Church, which was mentioned last night. They do a great job on social media if you're looking for a church to follow on social media. This was a video clip from one of their worship services, just a 30-second clip. It gives you kind of a micro experience into what worship is going to be like on a Sunday. And you can see here what they want you to do. They want you to go to prestonwood.org, right? So this is something that somebody can share easily on their social media with their friends. And then they want you to take that first step and go to the website. And so as we think about what are all the opportunities where we can resource our congregants to share our church and help them get to the website. And so often we want people to get them into the butts and seats, but this is that next step towards that, is before somebody comes, even if there's a personal invitation, they're gonna come to our website as a hub. So we've gotta make great first impressions, and I think social media is such a powerful tool to do this. One of the things I think we misuse social media as is we use it primarily as a marketing tool for our congregation, but the reality is it's best used as a ministry tool to our community. And so give people a micro connection to your church through sermon clips, through worship clips, through Bible verses, things that are going to minister to them in a very significant way, but in just a small, bite-sized portion, so that they'll then take the next step to visit your website. So the second thing that we can do is create a clear and compelling invitation to visit your church physically and experience digitally immediately. So I'm going to show you 2 websites as to what this looks like. So the first website is Bethel Church, if you're familiar, and you can very clearly see when somebody goes to their website what they want you to do. The first thing is join in person, show up on a Sunday. The second thing is join online. And so the reality is we want people to join in person. You want that to be a primary call to action. You want people to know what you want them to do, but you also know that they're probably going to check you out online. And whatever that moment is, it's probably not Sunday morning at 9 a.m. that they're at your website. It's likely like a Tuesday. Sunday is a long way away from a Tuesday. So if you can get them to be thinking about Sunday while then going online and experiencing your sermon right then, you're allowing an instant moment. This is what the internet allows us. So this isn't a problem. This is an opportunity for us to begin to bring church to people where they are and where they're used to experiencing it. And we're used to an on-demand mode of media consumption today. As we've stopped, we moved into DVR with television. We moved into Netflix and YouTube, where we want to watch what we want to watch, how we want to watch it, where we want to watch it. And we need to do the same thing with our media content as churches to get it to people now so that they'll make that connection and then they'll join us in person. Another great website is James River Church. You can see here almost the exact same thing. Times and locations. We want you to come on a Sunday. Church online. The other thing they have is new here is a button there in the far right corner. If you're a new person, if you're not familiar with the church, it's like you're important to us. And I think what we often do is we make our websites about our members. Our members are going to find the information they're looking for. But that first-time person is what we need to be communicating to in the images. And I think even this picture of the Lindells is a great picture of like welcoming. This is who you're going to see when you come here. One of the last pictures at Bethel that I think is even just for us to be so intentional with our second impression of our website is it was a picture with some people laying hands on somebody praying. And that is a representation of Bethel. But I think a lot of churches, I see a lot of like baptism pictures. And if you think about a non-church person and they see a picture of somebody getting dunked underwater, that freaks them out, right? So that's exciting to us as believers and as members. But as like somebody that doesn't go to church, it's like, you're gonna hold me underwater when I go there? Like, that's not the kind of impression we want. So we've got to be more thoughtful about who we're trying to engage with our website and what we want them to do. Okay, number 3, communicate giving opportunities both in services and online, on demand and live. Obviously, we have to, one of the things we as Rick communicated so clearly is we've got to talk about giving. We've got to talk about money in the life of our church. And that happens from the pulpit, that happens through email, that happens on our website. We need to communicate it, and we need to communicate how you give. So often we just say, go and give, but they don't know how. Like if I have a check, where do I take that check? If I have cash, where do I take that? If I want to give stock, how do I do that? How do I give? Where do I go on the website? Do I text? Do I go to a website? Do I email? Clearly communicate how people give and consistently communicate. And you can't communicate all of it at once, but I think being consistent in how we're communicating and the ways that we communicate. And then I mentioned here with our media content as well, as people are sporadically coming to our churches, we don't see the same consistency, right? That we used to see. And so a lot of people are showing up twice a month, but then in between they're watching online. And so they're not trying to stay disengaged, just life and different reasons. They're rewatching. But what we often do with our on-demand media or sermon content is we just clip out the sermon and we leave everything else out. And I do think that music is a disconnect a lot of times with that content, but I think people need an invitation to attend in person in that content. So on the front end of your sermon content, both in your podcast and your video content that you distribute, I would have an invitation to join us in person. And on the back end, I would have an invitation to give on all of your media content that you're putting out there, because these are often your members that are engaging with you throughout the week. And so just like you would give them an invitation within your services, you want to give them an invitation if they're also engaging with you online. All right, 4th thing, create a great online giving experience, not just an easy transaction. One of the things I feel like we have talked about through the years is we've got to make online giving easier. And I think the great news for everyone in this room is SecureGive has already done that for you. They've made giving, we historically talked about, you want to have the Amazon experience where it's super easy. It is, we're there. If you're using SecureGive, you have a great, easy transaction, user experience, that's taken care of for you. But part of the giving experience is it's the experience. It's what you're communicating alongside the giving experience. It's the language. Go ahead and go to the next slide here. And you can see here the slides. And Saddleback Church, I think, does a great job of even communicating we give because God gave first. What is the imagery around that? What is the messaging around your giving experience? And the giving experience comes in both the webpage, it comes in the thank you, it comes in like the confirmation receipt, or what any of the messaging that you can put around your giving experience. It's an experience. And we've done this historically. When we pass the plates in our church services, we had an experience that we created around that. But for whatever reason, when we took it online, it just became an online, like an e-commerce shopping experience. And it's not supposed to be that way. It's a spiritual experience. And we need to be thoughtful and intentional around every aspect of how we're now putting the wrapper around this great technology that we have, making it easy for people to give. Number 5, communicate uniquely with your first-time givers. Communicate uniquely with your first-time givers. As you think about moving people down the path, we often just treat everyone the same. And I think that's well-intentioned, but I think that often comes out of laziness as well. When somebody gives to you for the first time, you have the opportunity, and this is where they're kind of like, what's it gonna be like? This is a big step for me. And when they feel noticed, when they learn more about where their giving is going to, when they understand how significant that gift is, their connection to your church is increased significantly. And I think I loved hearing the story about North Rock Church in San Antonio last night, as they've seen such significant response as they've communicated uniquely with those first-time donors. And so as you communicate of how to get people past their second, this is an email I got from Elevation Church. I give one of the just, as I do R&D, I give to about 5 organizations every couple months just to test their giving experience and their communication and what it's like. And I encourage you to do the same thing, is just try giving $5 to 5 different churches every couple of months and see what the experience is like and see what you can learn. Elevation Church gave $5 to them. I immediately got this letter from Stephen Furtick. Within a week, I got a card in the mail, a handwritten card from a pastor at Elevation. And then a week after that, I got a phone call from somebody at Elevation. And then I got 2 pieces of direct mail throughout the rest of the year. And just I got into their email flow of their regular communication. It was unbelievable, the communication that they gave. And the reality is, it didn't take, that this isn't just something that Elevation as a huge megachurch, and I'm hesitant to even use them because they're so large. This is something any of us can do. We can email, we can phone call, we can send people letters in the mail, cards in the mail. What that will do from a response standpoint is massive, and it's work. There's no doubt about that. But it is worth it, and it is important. So we need to communicate uniquely with those first-time donors. 6th thing that I want to highlight is use email to consistently communicate with your congregation with an easy link to give online. You should be sending an email to your church every week. This is just easy. This is marketing 101, and we don't like that term in the church, so it's communications 101, if that makes you feel better. But at the end of the day, we need to be communicating with our church body, and we often will just say, I don't want to over-communicate. There are churches that do that, but most are not communicating enough. And email doesn't cost us a lot of money. It doesn't require a lot of time. You should be sending an email once a week that includes a link to last week's sermon, that includes some of the key information about your church, and it includes a link to how to give online. That's a minimum of what your communication strategy should look like in your church. And that's something everyone should be doing. All of us have access to email tools to be able to send. And this is an email I got from Elevation Church, was highlighting their Q3 ministry highlights. And this is just part of their regular communication. But we all need to be emailing our church at least once a week. That repetition, that rhythm of communication is so key to engaging people and moving people to their deepest level of engagement within the life of our church. And then this is the last point here. Number 7, tell impact stories everywhere, in person and online, of all that God is doing in and through your church. We get so focused on talking about where God's taking us, and we get excited about casting vision and talking about what God is going to do, but we so often forget to talk about what God is doing and what God has done. And I think it's just so important to talk about the life change stories. It's so important to talk about what God did at camp. It's so important to talk about what God's doing in the mission field through our church and what your giving is going to serve and support and expand the kingdom. We have to tell the stories of what God is doing. This is a social media post from James River Church of their serve day and what God did through their serve day. These are things that reinforce what God's doing in the life of our church, and we need to communicate what God's doing via social media. We need to do that via email. We need to do that via the pulpit. We need to do that in every avenue that we have to communicate with our church. We need to talk about where we're going, but we also need to talk about what God's doing. And as we do that, I think we'll see a great return on that intentionality and of that investment to moving people to their deepest level of engagement. As I close, I just want to encourage you to just think about, even today, what's one thing you can do to get better in driving your online engagement to moving people to their deepest level of engagement with your church. And I think there's something every day that we can do to get a little bit better and just be a little bit more intentional. I'm so grateful for the work you do. I'm so grateful that you allowed me to come be a part of this event. And so thank you so much for this time.